Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Skype sessions. Today we're talking to Murphy Thelen. And the other day I saw a trailer for a C.S. Lewis movie, and it's not the movie that you're thinking of. This was a trailer for Out of the Silent Planet. And then I discovered that there was more. And there was something very strange about this movie. It kind of reminded me of Bugsy Malone, insofar as virtually all of the actors were small children. So I needed to know more about this, so I invited Murphy to come on the show and talk about it. Murphy, welcome to Pints with Jack.
Thanks, David. It's thanks for having me on.
Well, can you just introduce yourself a little bit first of all? Who are you?
Sure. Absolutely. I grew up in a Christian home. I was the middle child of three for the first decade of my life. I was homeschooled, and since first grade, and growing up, we didn't really have video games, so we just found different ways of keeping ourselves entertained. I remember we had a lot of Legos, we had a lot of stuffed animals, and I remember that I would like make these whole worlds out of the stuffed animals, and even I would write stories to my great grandmother and tell her what they'd been up to. It kind of reminds me of like my own little amateur version of Lewis's Animal Land. Um, but when I got older, we got these GI Joe toy soldiers. They're like little action figures, and I discovered stop motion animation, which was, it's like you take a picture, you move them a little bit, you take another picture, and you can end up making like this whole story out of it. And we made a few videos that way, and it was a bunch of fun. And then so my family adopted two older brothers from Russia when I was a teenager. And we spent a lot of time romping in the woods together or exploring together, hunting. And then when it was time for us to get jobs, it's like we all became lifeguards together. We all went to the same college together, Kennesaw State. And then about that time, my little sister was born. So that made our family six at that time. So not quite the Von Trapp family from Sound of Music, but pretty close there. So when it came time for college, I initially wanted to study communications because I heard it was a good undergraduate for either becoming a pastor or evangelist. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I thought, oh, that might be cool. Um, but I ended up concentrating in media studies because the film and storytelling classes got the better of me. I'm like, oh, I can get more of this if I do media studies. So I did that, and then it required me to have the communications major required me to have language courses. I had to get 9 credit hours. Maybe it was 6, maybe it was 9. But I remember I saw a study abroad course where I could knock out all 9 credit hours in 1 month in Shanghai, China. So I signed up,
Dang.
and I ended up loving studying Mandarin Chinese so much that I made it my minor. And in my Chinese minor, they got me set up on this language partner website called Live Mocha, where you got to basically find a language partner that wanted to learn English, and I wanted to learn Chinese. So you met a lot of people on these websites. And then one person who I met, one girl, was in the underground church in China, and her status was like, I'm a Christian, and my status was Jesus Christ is Lord. And so we started talking to each other. We basically became each other's sole language partner for about 9 months. And then after I graduated, I took a long detour from my interest in going to study film. And instead, I wanted to do an intensive study and really memorize Mandarin Chinese, probably influenced by the person who I met online there. And then,
Girls tend to do that.
yeah, exactly. So I ended up getting to know her some more in the underground church over there for another 6 months in person. I met her family. Long story short, we ended up getting married in China. And so she's actually one of the actors in the film, my wife. So that's kind of how she comes in. And then of course the children. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of the background. But it's funny because China, I kind of relate a lot to Ransom in the fact that China was like my Ransom experience, right? So he went to Malacandra, right? And then he didn't speak the language. He had to learn the language. He had to learn the culture, and it completely ended up changing his worldview because of the conversations that he's having with people. Well, I kind of had a similar experience that really made me relate to the character because I didn't speak Chinese. No one there spoke English, and I had to learn Chinese. But I was fortunate enough to get in with the underground church, and it really gave me an experience to figure out what was Christianity and
Mhm.
what was cultural, because I
Yeah.
had concepts about what was Christianity, but then my world was rocked a little bit when I went over there and I meet the Christians in the underground church in China. So anyway, um, we uh, we ended up having our first child over there, Stephen, and it was about that time that we realized, okay, we need to move back to the United States. We want him to go to school in the United States. So we moved back in 2012, and it was tough to get a job in my major, and I couldn't jump into film right away. So I did a few short-term jobs, working at Chick-fil-A even for a couple months. But then I ended up working for a Christian apologetics ministry, and my job was to make cold calls to pastors and invite them to host one of our creation speakers at their church.
Mhm.
And it just so happened while I was working there, their current video editor took a job opportunity somewhere else, and it was at that point that I kind of raised my hand and said, "Hey, I actually went to school for this. Can I give it a shot?" And I'm really grateful they gave me a shot and they let me finish out that documentary. It was called Evolution's Achilles Heels. So it was basically, just about some of the problems with evolutionary theory. And so that was actually a really fun project to work on. I did a few more DVDs for them, and then I finally had the opportunity to actually make one movie for them that actually went to theaters for kind of a one night showing, similar to what they did with the C.S. Lewis movie recently.
Mhm.
But I did that, and my portfolio was kind of finally getting up to the point where my family was growing, and we were ready to maybe get out of nonprofit and get into something that was a little bit easier for the family. So it was about that time 4 years ago that I ended up taking a job working for Yamaha, and I'm currently at Yamaha now. So I'm one of the senior video production specialists for their marine group with outboard motors, and I just do the tutorial videos for them now. So that kind of is the nutshell version of like the history of my life. But it
Well, where did Lewis come in?
yeah, well, absolutely. So my first introduction to Lewis was probably um, watching the BBC Narnia series as a kid. Um,
Yes.
those were really good.
So good.
We love them a
I,
lot.
I object to anybody that tries to criticize them in any way.
They
I
were
watched them when
wonderful.
I watched them when I was 8, 9, and 10. I think when each of them came out, and
Yes,
as far as I'm concerned, they're still flawless.
I love them. I love them. Even it was even those that inspired me to kind of like give a stab to making movie myself, because they have their beavers and that they're people in beaver costumes, but it doesn't mess up the story
No.
because the story is wonderful. And so we can kind of do the same thing. It's like, you know what? I don't need to think so hard about having the effects perfect. If I tell
Mhm.
Lewis's story, then it'll be good.
And it'll be endearing. It still warms my heart when I think the fact that there were people on set. Their dedicated job was to go and pick up the beavers after they'd been walking in the snow, fallen over, and can't get up.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So watching the Narnia series got me to like it a lot, and I remember that my parents they bought me this uh, entire multi-disc set of the Chronicles of Narnia. It was like 30 CDs. Okay, it's probably like 7 hours or something. I don't know what the math works out to,
It,
but it's like every half an hour you have to change the disc. you know. But
was this the Focus on the Family
it
version or
it
another one?
may have been. I think was Patrick Stewart the guy who.
No, okay. He was on one where it was just straight narrating the
Yeah, I think
books,
it was just straight
but I
narration.
have that same set.
Yeah, yeah. So I went through that a number of times and really enjoyed it. And then since I was homeschooled, we got the opportunity to kind of pick some of the books we wanted to read. So I read some more Lewis books, the Screw Tape Letters, Mere Christianity. And then one that
Mhm.
really stuck with me was The Great Divorce, because it got me to appreciate how like fiction can open your eyes to deep truths in reality. And there's
Mhm.
that one scene where they get out of the bus and then they realize how thin and ethereal they are, because to the point where like even walking on the grass hurts their feet. It's like the spiritual is actually it's the solid thing. and
Yeah.
we think that we're solid, but actually, like, it really helped fix my concept of the spiritual. And I just appreciated that fiction had the power to do that. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
by reading a fictional story, I got a better grasp on it. Gives you ideas about the wonderful grand story history that we're in now. So I always remember that. But then in recent years, so we read a lot of books homeschooling, but then recently I was kind of reintroduced to Lewis when I bought an Audible subscription. Not a sponsor of
Ah,
this video,
yes.
but but
Oh, don't worry. They've done very well out of me. And I actually had a couple of listeners reach out to me recently because I put together a post saying, this is what you need to spend your Audible credits
yeah,
on.
oh
And they've
yeah,
got one, it's all the signature classics, and another one, it's something obscene, like 8 to 30 hours worth of essays.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think I bought one of those. So I remember uh, one of the ones I got on Audible was I got Surprised by Joy. I got The Fellowship of the Inklings, which was very interesting. And then I got a 40-hour essay collection by C.S. Lewis, which had all sorts of things that some had never even been published, like you got The Dark Tower, but then you just had lots of his like letters back and forth with people that were never actually published anywhere. And those were the ones that like really fascinated me. You got into some cool stuff. And then again, I purchased all seven of the Narnia books just on Audible, just because it's convenient to listen to it anywhere in the car. And so, the kids enjoy that one too. You know, it's a lot of fun.
Well, let's get on to the kids and the project itself. Why did you set about producing Out of the Silent Planet?
Yeah. Okay. So the kids were introduced to C.S. Lewis kind of through the Narnia series as well. First of all, and they were interested in some of his stuff, like you know, for actually, I guess they kind of were introduced in a similar way to C.S. Lewis that I was, except for them, first they watched like I think The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the newer version.
The Walter
Yeah,
Mitty
and
one.
then
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to watch all the movies, and so they watched all three. Um, and then they wanted to keep going, so they ended up watching the BBC version of is it the Silver Chair? Yeah, the
Silverchair.
Silver Chair, because that's
Mm-hmm.
the one that they never redid. And then they still wanted to keep going. It's like, well, how do we get more? And so we started listening on Audible and also we bought the books. So it's like we kind of go through both at the same time. So it's like we'll either listen in the car or when we get back to the house, then they have the physical book. But we started going through all the ones that are not either haven't been made into movies yet. So we went through The Magician's Nephew already, and I think we're like halfway through The Horse and His Boy now. But they got interested in Lewis, and then through my Audible subscription, like as far as how we started making the movies, I think it was my one of my older brothers that introduced the Ransom trilogy to me before that I had never. I didn't even know he made a space trilogy, and then I found it on Audible, and so I started listening to it, and then I loved it so much. I listened to it several times, especially actually that Hideous Strength is probably my favorite one because it relates so much to. It's like I once heard it said of that Hideous Strength that it's like a prophetic um, parable of our times, and I think that's pretty
Mm.
accurate. Like, uh,
And he even says in the preface that this is basically a story version of The Abolition of
yeah,
Man.
okay, well, there's another one from my list. Uh, but so basically, we were just sitting around one afternoon after I had gone through Out of the Silent Planet, and we just thought it would be a fun family project one night to just do the first scene. Okay, so we uh, we just realized that we kind of had some of the clothes and stuff already. We just did the scene of knocking on the door and walking through the woods and that kind of thing, and then we posted it on social media. And it basically was real short. It was probably only chapter one. It ended, right as he like climbs the fence, and we got so much encouragement from like friends and family after we posted on Facebook. They wanted us to keep going. It's like, oh, when's the next one? And we're like, oh, well, I guess we can try some more. But then, so I have two kids. I've got Stephen and Caleb. But then, like the next chapter, I realized, well, I'm out of kids. I need to have a lot more characters. So I started recruiting, nephews first. So behind me here, I've got, is this, I can't even see, but I think that's Ben. This
Yeah,
is
we can see them.
Ben. He was the next character. He played Weston, and then my son. So we got Caleb, of course, and then my son Steven. I think he's right about here. He played Divine. So then we were taken care of for a while, but then it's like you get further in, it's like, oh, I need more characters. So then my sister, who was born about the time I was going to college, she played the Hross. She got dressed up in this otter head we found on Amazon. Spoiler: I don't want to give away all my secrets, but she played the Hross, and then I needed more and more characters to the point where I even got my oh, this is Lissy right here, who played my Ross. I even got my dad to dress up as the Sorn and play play the Sorn. Little known secret. I don't know if he wants people to know that, but it's out there now. So, but it was, I mean, it was just a lot of fun making the films together. Like one of the things that was um, really interesting was just thinking about how are we going to do the scenes? How are we going to
Mm.
make this look like another world? The first, when they're on Earth, it was easy. It's like, oh, we'll just film this in the woods somewhere. But then we had to get this green screen behind me, which doesn't look like a green screen right now. But here we go. Let me toggle that off for a minute. That's what's actually behind me.
That's how they do the magic.
But yeah, so we had to use the green screen for doing the spaceship scenes. And we filmed everything on this little cheap Costco Canon SL2 camera that we got on a discount from like a Costco sale, uh, with a little 50 millimeter lens that's back here, and then basically it's like scene by scene you start thinking like, okay, how am I going to do this scene next? It's like Malacandra is supposed to be like all pink and purple, and have really like tall jagged mountains and stuff. Like, how are we going to do this? Well, I found like in my editing software, I found this function where you could like grab a color range and then twist it around to something else. So I just figured out you could grab all the greens in the shot and make everything green, purple, or pink, and all of a sudden it made anywhere look like an alien planet. I've seen Netflix do the same thing. There's shots that I see like there's blue grass. It's like, I know how they did that. But like for the mountain scenes, we started to get obsessed with like every family trip. We're like, okay, well, while we're there, what can we get for the movie? So we were going to visit my aunt and uncle in Colorado. Okay, Colorado's beautiful,
Hmm.
lots of mountains. And so we're like, we'll throw Ransom's outfit in the suitcase because we're going to get some shots while we're there. So you whip the cell phone out and have him run through like Garden of the Gods, which has all these really, tall, sharp mountains and, like mountain looking formations. So, but it was just a lot of fun to stage by stage think how we're going to film this, and it was a blast for the kids too. So
Yeah, that was really my next question. How did they react to doing this project? Had you read them the books first, or did you lead them through it as you were recording?
yeah, so that's a great question. So they had gone through the Narnia books already, but they had not been introduced to Out of the Silent Planet when we were filming it. But it actually, because we were acting it out, it got them interested in Out of the Silent Planet. So
Because it's definitely a harder book.
yeah, it's hard to book it, and it's written for adults. It's not really written for kids. But my sister, Lissy, I remember she actually read the books because we were doing the project. So she played the Hross down here. Here we'll give Lissy some credit right here. Great Hross acting. But yeah, basically, um, after we filmed her part, she became really curious about the story, and she read first Out of the Silent Planet, and she liked it, and then she's like, "Well, I'm going to read the next one," and then she read Paralandra. So it was really fun, and I'm really grateful now that like I've introduced it to my sister and my kids, because now we have like this common interest, that it's like a bond, like an inside thing that I really enjoy. So.
Mm. How has doing it changed your view of the book itself? Or has it?
Yeah, well, I always feel like I want to do it justice when I do the chapters. Um, it's like really the hardest part of making the story for me was actually the writing of the screenplay. Because you have each chapter is like 3,000 words, and I have to boil it down into a 300-word idea. So
Hmm.
there's a lot that you have to eliminate because I'm not making a 3-hour film. It's probably going to be like 30 minutes when it's done. So there's a lot that you have to cut out. But it was helpful. I think what was helpful for me in making the films was boiling down what is the most important idea in each chapter. Um, so and it's not so. I guess re- it just caused me to read it several times, and you catch a lot. You catch a lot more when you read the book the second and the third time than when you read it only
Hmm.
once. Because you start to go back and say, "Oh, I know what this is going to be." So I guess like with any book, you just get more out of it, and I certainly did get more out of some of the ideas and the philosophy on my second and third read for sure.
It's definitely been my own experience as we've been doing the podcast, because in most episodes, I'm the one producing a 100-word summary of what we're going to be discussing.
Yeah,
And it is really difficult to boil stuff down sometimes. And it forces you to really cut away the chaff and really get to the heart of what is the main idea that's
yeah,
trying to be expressed here,
exactly. Yeah, for sure.
which is tough when there's lots of lovely prose that you still want to include there somehow.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what we're working on with the next chapters too. I think the next chapter. So basically, the 14-minute video that's on YouTube now is basically chapters 1 through 9, and then we've already filmed and edited chapters 10 through 12, which is basically the conversations that
Hmm.
Hyoy and Ransom have. We haven't published that one yet. It's kind of short now. It's only 4 minutes, and I want to publish it as a longer chunk. So we're gonna film chapter 13 next, but there's ideas that are going to be fun to convey. Like I've got to introduce now the Eldil,
Hmm.
and the concept of and then we get to explore a little more about Oyarsa, which are kind of like the archangels of the planet, and it's going to be fun to introduce some of those themes.
Got to find a few more switches on your video editing to make that happen.
Yeah, I've got ideas already. Yeah, I got some graphics work ahead of me for sure.
So you're planning on finishing the whole story. Do you have any plans beyond that of maybe trying other works?
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely want to. I mean, we're halfway through the book now, so it would be a shame to not finish it. And then beyond that, oh, there are other fan films we've certainly talked about doing. Um, there are ones that like we when we read through The Magician's Nephew, it's like, oh, this hasn't been made into a movie yet. I'd love to do a fan film. Although the one fear with that is like, that one's actually going to be made into a movie fairly quickly here. So it's like, do I want to waste my energy?
Well, you say that. I don't
I don't
know.
know.
Netflix seem to be sitting on their hands for an awful long
Yeah,
time.
you know what? You may be right, but I felt like the Out of the Silent Planet story, nobody's even talked about making a real movie from it. I wish they would. And actually, part of the reason for wanting to do this is hopefully if you can get enough, fan base for it, people can recognize, oh, people do want this to be a real movie.
I
We
think.
want Hollywood to
Hmm.
sweep in and do this with real actors, not with children, you know. But we'll see how it goes. I definitely think our family's not going to stop making little fan films. We're always going to be working on something. So when this is wrapped up, we'll see. We'll see what's next. But yeah, there's definitely plans to keep going. So
Well, I was actually interviewing Norman Stone earlier in the week. He was the director behind The Most Reluctant Convert, the first version of
yeah,
Shadowlands. And I had sent him a copy of your video. I said, you need to check this out.
okay,
And it's not part of the interview. We talked about this afterwards, and we were going back and forth as to, okay, if somebody actually tried to make Out of the Silent Planet in Hollywood, or the other ones, say like
Paralandra.
the tough ones like Paralandra or that hideous
Oh
strength.
yeah.
How do you even start trying to do that?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I know what you mean. It's like Paralandra is such a wonderful story, because it's essentially Lewis's version of Paradise Lost, right?
mm,
And I absolutely love Paralandra because it really gets into helping you think about the Adam and Eve situation. Like, what is the scenario that could have played out, for Mother Eve, Um,
hmm
and I really enjoyed that, but that one's harder to make into a film, perhaps. And then there's also, that hideous strength. The big challenge with that one is there's so many characters that there's a lot of coordination.
I thought you were going to say casting the bear.
Oh, casting the bear. Okay, yeah, I'll just buy a Chewbacca outfit for that. A bear outfit from Amazon. Sometimes my wife Alice, she'll ask me, let's just roll our eyes when she sees what I've ordered on Amazon because we're
I think that's every wife
yeah,
ever.
it's like we're
Whenever they see the invoice come through and things have been bought from the children's
yeah,
section, and when your kids are super small, it's like, what did he
yeah,
buy now?
exactly. So it's like, back here I've got part of the Soren outfit, which was we bought like these feathers to sit on my dad's shoulders, and so like I'm literally buying feathers that go around your neck, and she's like, "What is this?" It's for the movie.
It's gonna really mess up your Amazon algorithm. It's got no idea what on earth you possibly want.
Exactly. If you liked this, you might like, you know. Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is wonderful. It warmed my heart when I saw the video, so I had to get you on. Before we wrap up, your wife also has a video channel. Would you like to say a few things
Oh,
about
that's
that?
funny. You noticed that. Yeah, so she's got we've actually got a number of little YouTube channels that we experiment with, but she has a channel called Alice's Kitchen, and so she loves to cook Chinese food. And so uh yeah, we started experimenting with that about a month ago, and we've probably made 4 episodes. But it's been a lot of fun. She really enjoys cooking, and so she's going to be super happy that you gave her a shout out.
Well, I already sent one of the videos to my wife, the one about the dumplings,
Okay.
because we had had a conversation about sort of foods that we like but didn't know how to cook, and she had mentioned something about dumplings, and I was like,
Yeah. So when
I see a way
well,
this works out for
absolutely, because
everybody.
so when she first moved here from China, it's like we live in Kennesaw, Georgia, so there's a pretty good selection of like there's a few Chinese restaurants around here, but you can't eat at a Chinese restaurant all the time. I mean, like there's even authentic Chinese restaurants that taste like home to her, um,
Hmm.
but you can't eat out all the time. But you still miss that food that you grew up with all the time. But fortunately, around Atlanta, there's a lot of Asian grocery stores. There's Chinese and Korean grocery stores, and so she'll just buy the ingredients in bulk for a lot of those things, like the Chinese spices and stuff, and then you know um, cook it at home. And so I'm very spoiled as a husband to get to have really good food all the time.
Yeah, me too. It's
That's
great.
awesome. And congratulations. I know that you've got a little baby growing up now. You've got the well,
A little over 2 months old at this
yeah,
point. Fat little kid. He's adorable.
that's exciting. Yeah, I know that you're super eager to start introducing him to Lewis. It's like grow up so I can start reading this stuff.
Oh, he's already been
That too.
introduced. The other night he was a bit fussy, and so I put on my recording of Lewis reading the Four Loves because that's what we're working on this
Yeah.
season. It's like I got to get some prep done, so he
So
might
he's
as well listen
already
to it.
getting into it.
Chilled right out, chilled right out. And so I then picked him up and took him over to where we've put all of our pictures up, and we've got one
Yeah.
of Lewis, and he needed to know about Uncle Jack fairly
Oh, I
early
love it.
on, and it was actually. I got a preview of The Most Reluctant Convert, and that was actually the first movie that the two of us watched together after he came home from the hospital. So
Oh,
the
oh
indoctrination has
man.
already begun.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that one. That's one that I've seen the ads for, and I can't wait to go see that. But
Well, I have it on good authority that it's going to be available on a streaming service much sooner rather than
awesome.
later.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. That's great.
Well, Murphy, thank you for coming on the show. I'll make sure there are links to everything that we've talked about in the show description and also on our website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David.
And listeners, please join us next time. We'll continue going further up and further in. Cheers.